Sevens. Today we're going to talk about script writing for your podcast. So this lesson is going to have kind of two parts to it. I'm going to just read through the instructions that are in OneNote as the first part, just to make sure we're clear on the expectations. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the writing process, an example script, and kind of show you the tone and style of the writing. So in OneNote, in your content library, Unit 3 Ecosystems, Lesson 12, make sure you're refreshing your notebook. This is kind of the tips and tricks for writing your podcast. The animal of the day is the quokka, native to Australia. It's a marsupial. So if you want more information, there's a link there on the quokka. So this video will appear here as soon as it's uploaded. So you can choose kind of your method for watching it. First, I'm just going to start with the expectations for the podcast script. You know my style, I'm very flexible, but I wanted to give you some kind of guidance as to the style of your script, as we are publishing these on a global platform, so on Spotify. So for this script, it's kind of a minimum of 200 words, and that is not very much. That should be very, very easy to do. I'm just kind of giving you a quick sort of minimum. That's about a minute in length if you're speaking at a sort of normal pace. Yours will probably be over 200 words easily. However, we want to keep it within reason. So approximately 3.5 minutes is kind of the maximum. Again, it's not a hard limit. If you're at 4 minutes or 3.8, don't worry, don't stress about cutting anything. I'm more concerned with quality over quantity, so 200 minutes is the minimum, around 3.5 minutes is the maximum. If you start to get over 5 minutes for a podcast, you're going to lose the attention of your audience. So we do want them to be shorter but effective, so we want that quality to be there. For writing your script, I've given you guiding questions and a graphic organizer to kind of help you organize and plan out your information. That really is just part of the research or the planning phase. Please don't repeat the questions directly. That becomes a very boring, contrived podcast if you're saying, question 1, what is the summary of your article? My article was about this. That's not very entertaining for our audience. Those guiding questions were simply just to help you plan and pull out the information from your article. As it's a podcast, there's no visuals, so nobody's going to see your writing or see your script. You actually have to make deliberate plans for how you're going to write things. So include those natural pauses and spaces to slow yourself down. We want it to have a conversational feel with your audience. So natural pauses. You can also add inflection and character to your speech. This is going to help make it more engaging, as there are no visuals to support your podcast. You can include direct text references and quotes. You're familiar with doing this as citations in an essay, but as they're not seeing your writing, you have to verbally say those things like, according to a National Geographic study done in 1995, blah, 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 whatever the fact is. Or the author of this article, whatever his name is, says this. So it's okay to directly reference the article. That's part of your evidence that you're getting. There are 2 lines that are going to be required in your script. There's kind of an opening line and a closing line, and that's just to introduce the podcast channel. So especially if you're stuck and you're having trouble getting started with your writing, start with the opening line that's required. That'll get you going. So that's the basic requirements for the script. I want to talk a little bit about the writing process. Lots of people get hung up on this and they actually have trouble getting started. Be aware that it's going to take several edits. You're not just simply going to sit down in one go, write your script and say, I'm done, it's finished. We are publishing this on a global platform. This will take some work. This is a big project. So read through your script several times. It will take edits, it will take changes, you will make improvements. The biggest tip that I can give you is to read your script aloud, because you are going to be recording it as a podcast. The more you say it out loud and listen back to that recording, you will notice mistakes, you will notice grammatical errors, you'll notice things that don't sound very entertaining or quite right, and you'll make adjustments based on that, so based on the sound. The first step is really to just start organizing your ideas and putting things into your own words. That is important. These articles are there to reference. That's where you're getting your evidence. That's where you're getting your information. But the podcast or the speech part needs to be your own words. Yes, you are going to directly quote the article at times, but the rest comes from you. So, if you're having trouble getting started, you need to start with the opening line for sure. But you could also start with just a brief summary of what your article is about. That might be 1 or 2 sentences, just kind of an introduction to the topic. And then you can start getting into things like the cause and the effect and the evidence and explaining through that. That claim evidence reasoning is a great way to organize your script and lay it out, but it doesn't have to be that rigid. You can blend the evidence and the reasoning. It might actually be easier to explain through things. You can make that claim multiple times. You could even end with the claim. The format or the style is up to you. My tips for you is that imagine you're having a conversation with your audience. A podcast is fairly informal in its style. Even though there's nobody talking back with you, you want to be very casual and conversational in your tone. There's also no visuals, so we do need to be descriptive. It's okay to be a little bit dramatic as long as you're not taking away from the facts or the science. And that could be in the words that you choose. Even the snake article that we talked about, just the word apocalypse implies that it's just such a much bigger deal than if we were to just say things like the snake population is declining. And it has that more theatrical value to it. So again, plan for those pauses and those breaks. You want to make sure that your script flows easily and your audience can keep up with what you're saying. Nobody is seeing your writing, so the style of how you write it is up to you. I'm not picky about format. There doesn't have to be indents and paragraphs and special organization. Write how you want to read it. Write how it's going to be easiest for you to flow through. That might mean bolded, highlights, exclamation marks. It might be a line and then 10 spaces and then another line and then a paragraph. Totally your choice. Okay. That the writing is up to you. So once you've kind of got your whole scripts together, or even smaller chunks, please record yourself reading through it and listen back to it before you decide that your script is 100% edited and finished. Hearing yourself say it, you will realize that there are some things you might want to change in the text. So it's kind of like a pre-recording or draft recording. Okay, those are the tips. That's the basics. I want to get into kind of an example of the script writing process or the writing process and how to use the previous lessons to help you. So the previous lessons, you had to answer the guiding questions and kind of put your notes together in a claim evidence reasoning. This is what you're going to be forming your script from. So that's where you get your information. Now, especially with the facts or the evidence, it's okay to kind of organize your thoughts if you are copying and pasting. I know a lot of you tend to work that way. That's okay to start. However, I need to be really clear that things need to then be changed into your own words. And in that case, it's actually easier to start with a clean slate and write yourself. This is an example script I'm going to read through, and I just wanted to kind of show you the tone or the style of the language, but also a little bit of the editing process. This script is written piece by piece, and the author kind of goes and writes a sentence or two, reads it aloud, and then changes something, and then writes another sentence or two, and then changes something. Don't feel like you have to write this entire script and then go back and edit. It's okay to take breaks, do it in small chunks, and come back to it later. So just to kind of even show this process, there's a really quick sort of slow motion or time lapse, just kind of showing really quickly that they're making many changes. They're going back, they're referencing their questions, they're referencing their claim evidence reasoning notes, they're deleting things, they're changing wording, they're spreading things out. It's a very fluid writing process. So this is just a sample. So I'm going to read through the script just to kind of get a sense of the language and the feel. A couple of things to note is this is incomplete. This is just a sample of the process or the writing process. To help this person, they've included sort of section headings to help them organize and plan their ideas, but they're not actually going to say those words. So those are just to kind of help them during the writing process. They've made notes of things that they want to maybe change later, but they're not sure, so they're cutting out some stuff and they've replaced it with something else. You can do that as well. The blue is something they've added that they're just adding bits to their script. So again, this isn't finalized, this is just the process. So I'm going to read through it just so you can kind of hear the language and the tone. It's very similar to the article itself that you've read. So almost like a newspaper style editorial tone to your writing, including the scientific facts. So I'm going to read through just the whole thing once over so you can kind of see the tone. Welcome to the Science at SIS Ecosystems podcast. Deep in the Panamanian rainforests lies a silent but deadly predator, the chytrid fungus. This fungus has been wreaking havoc up and down the food chain, starting with the local amphibians. The increase in the chytrid fungus is a naturally occurring biotic factor. It's causing a domino effect of population declines within the ecosystem. Amphibians, like frogs and salamanders, are being wiped out by this pathogen, which has led to an alarming decrease in the tropical snake populations, as they are the snake's main food source. According to a study done by Karen Lips with the University of Maryland, after the fungal outbreak, snake sightings in the area declined by a factor of 3. Scientists believe that this fungus has caused the decline or extinction of at least 500 species within the area. In addition, they believe that at least a dozen snake species are gone from the area and that the amphibian population has decreased by about 70%, which is a tragic loss of biodiversity. Not only is the fungus killing amphibians and snakes, but it's having major effects throughout the ecosystem and the food web. The declining snake population means a reduction in prey for some bird species. This will have the same negative impacts on their population as well. With less amphibians reproducing, there are less tadpoles in the streams and ponds. This is leading to further effects of the fungal outbreak. It has caused an increase in algae blooms, which choke out many aquatic organisms, starving them of precious oxygen. This too will undoubtedly cause major issues to the aquatic ecosystems of the Panamanian rainforests. So the script is incomplete. They're still working on kind of the ending and adding a little bit more information, and then they finish it off with the required closing line. So this is just a sample of the writing to kind of give you an idea of the tone. They're adding emphasis. Even as I was reading through that, I noticed mistakes. I noticed mistakes in the writing where things don't flow perfectly. And so that's why I really encourage you to read it out loud and then make those edits as you go. Okay? This is just a sample to kind of give you an idea. Today is devoted to working on your script, getting that started, starting to piece things together. You have all the resources you need in OneNote, including the Summative Podcast page and today's lesson. So go ahead and get started.